So, with regards to Deepwater Horizon from 2016, um, yeah, it's about an event that happened 6 years prior to that, actually. So it's not quite, but yeah, and 11 years now. It's been a while. I actually remember it when it first happened. I remember reading about it. I never thought it was uh, so damaging. I mean, sure, I guess, the fact that 11 people died, it must have been, but, I mean, I still need to sort of verify that, things really did turn out, how accurate it is, and whether, because it was quite bombastic in a way. I mean, it's one thing for something to explode, but for, at one point, it seems as if there was some sort of flamethrower, and that seems a bit, I don't know, just, I mean, does it really happen? Maybe it does because of the pressure and everything, but I need to verify it. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, in terms of what it was about, I mean, it's yeah, yeah, I suppose, I mean, more of a, sort of a documentary sort of thing, as long as it's accurate. But the problem, I think, and I'm starting to see him as a problem. I mean, it's one thing if this is the first time one ever watches, the so-called, first billing actor and also producer. The problem then happens, so just, I mean, actors obviously play parts in many movies, but they're usually different parts. I mean, sure, there is a stereotype, there is cast types and such, but this guy practically plays the same thing every single time that I see him, and it's just bizarre to see, and it sort of ruins the movies. I mean, it's not like he personally had anything to do. I'm assuming with Diplo, unless I could need to read it, but I mean, and yet, um, yeah, well, he obviously wanted to be the protagonist, right? Even though this is the weird thing about most of his movies. Like honestly, the only movie I've seen so far that he was in that isn't similar is Daddy's Home, but that's completely different. As in, different genre, and it's a bit strange because I think it was pretty much the first time he really um, I mean, I became aware of him in a way as an actor. So it's strange because it seems like comedy certainly doesn't seem to be the primary genre he acts in, and the one he does, so primarily acting, is just bizarre because I mean all the movies are basically the same thing, right? And that they tend to have either violence or tragedy of some sort. The problem, though, is the fact that um, he always plays some sort of he wants to play some sort of savior. Now I don't know, but I mean I don't know honestly if his character, Mark Williams, I think it was called, was really someone. I mean, okay, he wasn't. I mean, the most, but he was someone. I mean, clearly in the movie at least, he is shown as being possibly the most savior type personality. Even though he was hurt himself, so it's not like, at least it's not one of those movies where somehow the protagonist magically isn't hurt. Sure enough, that those unrealistic, idiotic, brainless, But no, the problem so is that it, in many movies he seems to do this. He seems to like it. He's always a producer, so obviously it seems like he wants a certain role always and wants top billing, etc. And then, I mean, doing this, he sort of just tars the movie with the same sort of brush, and so that all the movies he's in, they're somehow suddenly connected, even though they have nothing to do with each other, and it's a problem because the Horizon has nothing to do with the ones I've watched in the past, and yet I end up inevitably like it's not even the same thing as when you watch the same actor in different movies normally, yeah. Because actors do still, even if there is a stereotype they play to, they do generally play something slightly different. But this guy plays exactly the same, pretty much. Like the other movie I've seen, he plays a cop who miraculously saves it. I mean, come on, really? Just can he just not try to be like even though the movies do seem to be generally ensemble dramas, but no, he clearly wants to be the protagonist. Like even if this movie especially was clearly about many different people. I mean, it did begin like that. He was a bit part at the beginning for most of an hour or so, but then somehow he wants to be a savior. He must have some sort of Jesus complex or something. Honestly, this is why producers shouldn't act in the movies that they produce. They can clearly have undue influence. This is the very definition of undue influence. And yeah, I don't know if the Williams character likes the fact that he depicted him like that. He probably does, even if he wasn't really the paramount savior in real life. I have no idea if he was really, but the fact that he plays the same character every single time is just not good for the movies he does. Generally, it's just not good. Like, no, I mean every single movie I'm going to watch in the future, I'm going to expect it always, and it's tiring. I mean, he's not even. I mean, even you know characters like even like Bruce Willis or Jason Statham do play to a type, but as I say, even they differ a slight bit. I mean, they do generally play in violent movies, so it's not like the entire genre generally changes. That's not the point. Many actors do play in similar sort of genres. Only rarely do they differ usually, and even this the type they play to usually, like um those two usually always fighting their way through and but they're not always safe. There's usually something else to them that's slightly subtle and such, even though the movies generally aren't that subtle. I don't know, it's a bit strange, but it, you know it's quite something though for some for Mark's movies to be even less subtle than the movies of someone like Stanton. Because yeah, I mean, I never thought they were, but there's usually something, you know, like sometimes, for example, they can be, you know, a criminal who also happens to do something positive. But no, Mark's character is always positive, no matter what. Totally positive. So this is what I'm saying. It's unrealistic. Now I'd be surprised if Mark Williams' character is seriously all positive, and somehow the dinosaur tooth survived somehow, right? 11 lives and survives. 11 people died, but not the tooth. Oh no, he absolutely retained the tooth. Now I've I need to read about it. I know there was I'm not mostly complaining about that specifically, but Yeah, as I say, I thought that the problem is what he does generally, just what he does, how he does it, and the fact that yeah, he always seems to want to play this character in the different sorts of ways, you know. Uh, Otherwise, it's an interesting sort of story. It's not like he ruins it. He just mars it, a bit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is still interesting. I mean, how it all happened. How indeed it reminded me a bit of the Titanic. Uh, yeah, I mean, this is what happened, and especially with the lifeboats at the end, quite similar to the Titanic. And then there was also a head count after that. Except Titanic is it's a slightly opposite of problem. Water was obviously the enemy there. Yeah, water, definitely water. So there's sort of opposites in a way, but sociologically, practically identical problem. You get these people who believe everything's perfect. I was amazed how um, even when it started to explode and fire coming out of everywhere, even when people started to just be thrown against walls. Somehow, that guy still didn't want to call a mayday. That's quite something. If it really happened, it's unbelievable. And you don't know what else, and how they differentiate between this so-called kick and a blowout. So yeah, there's the other sort of problem with this kind of movie, obviously, but I mean, I'm not really complaining too much about it. I mean, it is what it is. It obviously the jargon, but it comes to the territory. So I'm not saying there shouldn't have been jargon because it does establish a more realistic veneer. Uh, it would have been better too if instead of acronyms they actually use the full word, maybe because the full well words, because the acronym obviously no one would know what the acronym is about unless you actually search for it, or you're in the industry and you're used to all this. Obviously, I'm sure many people who are in the industry need to look up all that, but sure enough, for someone who isn't in the industry, had to look up loads, absolutely loads of acronyms and concepts. Of course, for a non-engineer, it's slightly ever so slightly, but still sort of makes sense in a way. Um, yeah, but yeah, with regards to the bureaucracy and everything, it's quite. I was surprised though that Vidal, or what is it called again? His character, um, Vidrine, yeah, weird name, John Malkovich's character. I was surprised that he actually was so close to the mud and it all splashed him around. That I don't think happened in Titanic, at least in the movie. I have no idea what's happened in real life there. I'm not sure many people do. Uh, but yeah, no, the Titanic it's even worse, I guess you could say, because classes were firmly separated there, and but similarly you get supposed upper class, trying to get on the lifeboats much earlier, even though all the tokens that they have are useless usually, but I suppose for someone who operates, currency wasn't as much of an issue here either in Deepwater Horizon. And there wasn't a scene similar to, oh, I have a baby, Well, obviously there weren't any children at all. Just saying, there was such a scene in Titanic, with that guy just stealing a baby just so he could get priority. Quite a bizarre thing. Um, no, yeah, so the Malkovich's character just went there and somehow they let him in. Don't think there was much argument about it, but it's quite something how after denying it, after being flippant about it, suddenly you know and overall, he was indeed not exactly the worst affected. So yeah, although I can see still, I mean, the dilemma, what the dilemma was about there at in the middle, you know. Although I never, I mean, obviously encountered such a situation, but I can see what they mean about there not being much mud when there was so much pressure, which is there wasn't any mud at all apparently, which is a conundrum. So then they tested it with the so-called, what was it called again? Kill something. Kill switch? No. Anyway, yeah. Um, so that was strange, and that still wasn't exactly clarified. I'm assuming I don't know if I could discover what that was about, but clearly there was some sort of error there, some sort of positive thing that you know made him decide to go ahead with the drilling, and yet there was clearly still a problem. How the pressure went to zero when clearly there was quite a problem is indeed strange. Um, I'll read a bit about it now. I'm just commenting on my initial impression for now. But sure enough, this will need researching as much as possible, although by all means, I'll be limited as to how much I'm assuming I can understand. I am by no means an engineer, so yeah. It was interesting, as I say, Mark's character is sort of intrusive. But this is the thing, even Malkovich himself doesn't always play this sort of character or anything. He usually plays many different sort of characters. But so other than those two, though, no, I didn't quite know many others. Um, yeah. Also, with regards to how these, so I mean, there is the jargon, obviously, which is relevant, even if quite impenetrable unless researched. But there's also this grammatical thing that they use, which I realize they were trying to make it even more realistic by essentially integrating the way that these people spoke, I'm assuming, so as realistic as possible. But they didn't just have an accent. An accent was already established that they're from a certain area, each other. No, but the way they spoke was really made it difficult. And combined with the jargon, it just made it so much more difficult. Is all I'm saying. So it would have been slightly better in my opinion if they didn't. Um, accents are fine, obviously, but with regards to the way they use grammar, it was quite difficult to keep up along with the jargon, of course. I don't think it was so much a problem with Mark's character. It was a problem, so yeah, with Malkovich's character, I think. Although, the latter half of the movie didn't exactly speak much anyway, so not a big problem overall. But I got to admit, I'm assuming it's CGI, all the explosions and all the fire, and even some of the on the water thing were interesting to look at. Just as interesting as they and itself terrifying as well. I'm assuming that's the effect people, the creators wanted to impart. But of course, this is more of a realistic sort of CGI, I suppose, as opposed to CGI, which is used to fabricate reality per se, like for example in the other movie that I watched recently called Pan. Um, but yeah, for some reason, of course, the usual thing is that people do not, well, people seem to prefer, I suppose, reality. I don't know. I mean, this movie was more realistic, I suppose. I mean, it was fairly realistic. But in terms of, like the average rating on IMDb here, 7.1. Yeah. So yeah, on average rated. Even though it's all overall still not exactly, the most. Uh, I mean, it is, I suppose, a thriller. It could be. I mean, in the sense that, it could be thrilling. I mean, if you're not there, I suppose. Obviously, if you're there, then it would be terrifying. That's obviously the case. But in terms of, I mean, enjoyability, top pure enjoyability, with movies. Yeah, it's a bit. Personally, I enjoyed Pan more. That's just, just me. So I don't know, honestly. In terms of CGI, I'm saying mainly. I mean, this for plots, obviously they're entirely different, and one is fiction and one isn't. So yeah. But in terms of what CGI can do, well, yeah, in this case, sure enough, it can recreate quite a lot of fire, and that's the point. Uh, uh, I'm assuming this is CGI. I'd be surprised if it's not. Um, Otherwise, they would have exploded a lot of things and use a lot of flamethrowers. I wouldn't be surprised if they use flamethrowers indeed, because that did seem to be what looked like, at least the effect of flamethrowers. But there's, I'm not sure there's any mention of CGI, but I just assume there is. It's just not very obvious. Oh yeah, here. Yeah, I go to the extra code. Oh, wait, avoid CGI look. This says avoid CGI look, but it's still CGI, right? And this is just from a review, so I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, what else really? Won't be surprised if they really made things truly explode just so they could film it generally, because especially an actual oil rig, I'd be very surprised if they destroyed an entire oil rig just to make a movie, just so Mark could act out his savior fantasies. Yeah, not sure many people would. But then again, I mean, yeah, I suppose he could pay for it himself, could pay for an oil rig to explode so he could be a savior. Yes. See what I mean? It's a bit strange that people do indeed seem to sometimes. Yeah, I mean, there are types, and there are just really specific same character issues. Yeah. I mean, there's barely any differentiation between this character and this character in the movie with where the Boston Marathon bombing happened. Yeah, there's practically no difference whatsoever, and it's a bit bizarre, obviously. It is because one is supposed to be nominally, at least, a police officer there in the other movie. Here, I thought it was supposed to be some sort of technician, but practically the same characters. So whereas many actors do seem to act out different personas, I know they're the same actor, They do have a lot of the same sort of uh, traits and such. Like Robert Downey Jr. has this tick that he has. So it's not like they can completely dissociate from that, which they specifically. All it, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a personal thing, and they do carry it on in other movies. But that's not what I'm referring to. Yeah, this is clearly a decision Mark made specifically to be a savior in every movie that he apparently also produces. I'm guessing in the future he's going to probably want to direct it as well, and then he'll probably want to fill out all the other actors, and then he'll get to choose which persona he gets to act as a savior to save all the other Wahlbergs. That would be some bizarre stuff, huh? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's at some point though things can get out of hand, right? What else does he want to do? Does he want to compose music as well? Write the script, write a book, or the movie is based. I mean, yeah, some things. Just it's a bit bizarre. Anyway, yeah. Otherwise, um, as a movie, it still sort of works, with or without him. I just wish he wasn't such a focus. And it was truly a more ensemble drama. And there wasn't such an incredible finale, which is, but anyway. Hmm. Okay, now after I watched three movies or so far that this Burke directed, and I didn't quite read much about him before, but I factored that into my thinking. In addition to reading here on factual errors, I think that's part of the factual errors page, that Halliburton was mysteriously not held responsible in the movie. It's a slight detail, Apparently, Schlumberger was instead responsible for some reason. Maybe they should sue him or something. But I was wondering though, could death possibly be intentional? Yeah, this is all circumstantial evidence. Mm, Not saying it's anything to do with, you know, this guy seems absolutely obsessed with the military, right? And Halliburton, in addition to doing cementing, which completely blew up. I mean, it was the lack of cement, from my understanding, that mm, created the blowout. So yeah. Now, Halliburton is also involved in the military too, mainly oil, and of course it was, you know, um, anyway, the point is, not mainly oil it seems, but the point is, mm, apparently, I mean, it might have been involved in the Iraq War as well, possibly. I haven't read that much about it specifically, but yeah, there was a Baghdad incident apparently. Um, so yeah, I'm just wondering, just why I wildly, idly wondering here that Peter Berg might have covered up for them. Yeah, it's just an idle thought, really. Not claiming it's reality by all means. It's might have easily been just a coincidence that he happened to forget about Halliburton For some reason, ah, but I'm just saying, based on what I've read about him and his seeming obsession with the military and everything that is related to it. I don't know. Schlumberger, on the other hand, apparently is just an oil cementing company specifically. So I don't think here it's involved in yeah, it just has an environmental record. But yeah, pretty much just oil then presumably. And specifically, Schlumberger was contracted to perform wildlife logging, whatever it is. Like I said, I wasn't any way knowledgeable about the oil industry before I watched this movie, but I have learned just a slight bit, I guess, from watching it, despite the distraction that Wahlberg is. And yeah, now I'm wondering as well whether these two have collaborated for so damn long now because of their surname, because the surname is the same, as in, the same suffix specifically. And frankly, I have no idea why I keep watching these movies despite knowing full well I'm not really very interested. And bizarrely enough, so far, this movie was kind of the odd one out from the ones I've watched specifically, mm, since it doesn't involve, other people. Well, the people, are the ones who have neglected and such, but doesn't as such, involve other people. But yeah, it's really strange that Halliburton was mysteriously omitted, isn't it? Just idly wondering. And ultimately, this is really it was too absolutely obsessed, pretty much obsessed, like he is in every such movie, like in you know uh, um, Survivor. What was the first one again? Yeah, it's Lone Survivor. Yeah, absolutely obsessed with supposed heroics, right? Like, well, you know, these people were just caught there. They weren't heroes. They were just caught in a situation that just happens, And but you know, uh, this Peter Berg is absolutely obsessed with the belief that people are heroes somehow. It makes no sense. There's no such thing. There's people caught, in his prior movie. They actually contemplated killing innocent civilians. That is the last thing that could ever be described as heroic. And somehow, though, he still somehow, oh, glorifies them pretty much. And almost the same here, except it's I mean, clearly he loves his gore. That's one thing that all these movies share. Particularly these two, but he absolutely loves it. In a way, I mean, the only thing I could have, I did sort of criticize just a bit from the beginning of the movie, the first part, just before the explosion, is the excessive jargon. But, in a way, that is interesting. Because, you could learn something if you wanted to. I'm not saying he should have just continued on like that, but the latter half was absolutely too obsessed then with the gore, which it's total opposite. It would have been better if we saw more scenes from outside in a way, but just so obsessed with it, it's always it makes no sense. All his movies are structured the same way as well, which doesn't make them really. I mean, it makes them very predictable, first of all, but not really very interesting either in a way. Because yeah, in a way, it's always the first bit that is more interesting. The second half, yeah, whatever, it's just gore. It's always just gore. So honestly, I'd be very surprised if he does anything else in his other movies because at this point, this is what I'm going to expect always, it seems.